Hello friends, and welcome to my kitchen. Today we'll be making a decadent and rich Salisbury steak with an onion and mushroom Guinness gravy. It's bursting with flavor and there isn't a lot of ingredients that you'll need. So let's get in the kitchen and I'll show you how to prepare this. For this recipe you'll need some hamburger. I'm using ground round, but you could also use ground chuck if you'd like. I've got mushrooms, 2 eggs. You'll also need a shallot, some garlic, and a small yellow onion, some all-purpose flour, ketchup, tomato paste, some Guinness stout, Worcestershire sauce, some beef stock, breadcrumbs, and fresh parsley. First thing we want to do is prepare our hamburger meat. This is 2 pounds of ground round. This recipe will serve about 5 to 6. You can cut it in half if you'd like. I'm going to beat up 2 eggs, throw that into the mix. I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons of ketchup, as well as 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. And then we're going to do 1 1/4 cup of unseasoned breadcrumbs or panko. I had panko, so that's what I'm using today. Then a couple pinches of salt, some black pepper, some garlic powder. You can put dry mustard in here if you'd like. And then using a fork, we want to mix this up. Just take 2 or 3 minutes and mix it up. You don't want your warm hands to get everything too overmixed. Now we can put some plastic wrap over it and let this marinate in the fridge while we prepare everything else. Now I'm going to show you how to make a fortified beef stock using a store-bought stock. It's impossible to always have a homemade beef stock on the ready, so this is just a little versatile trick you can use. We're going to add 3 cups of the beef stock to a jar or a pitcher, 1 tablespoon of ketchup, along with 1 tablespoon of tomato paste, and 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. Easy. And now just using a whisk, just whisk everything up. I'm using an immersion blender. I have one, so I'm going to use it, but you could use a whisk just as easily for this. Just make sure the tomato paste is nice and well broken down and incorporated. Next, we want to dice up a small white or yellow onion. Mince up some shallot. This is a pretty big shallot, so I'm gonna save half for later. You want about a tablespoon worth, and you want to mince it up real fine like that. For the garlic, it's gonna be 2 garlic cloves. Again, mince fine. And then for the parsley, we want a good size handful and mince it up pretty fine. Slice up 2 pints of mushrooms of your choice. I'm using button mushrooms because that's what was on sale today. Now let's portion up our Salisbury steak. You could make ovals or circles. To me, it doesn't really matter. I just want them to be more thick than thin because I want them to have a nice texture on the outside and still be tender on the inside. Now we can set up our cooking station. Everything's prepared. We've got our Salisbury steaks, our mushrooms, our aromatics, some of the flour, and some Guinness. Now in a pan or cast iron skillet on medium-high heat, we want to add a couple drizzles of extra virgin olive oil as well as a nub of butter. And we want to sear our steaks for about 2.5 to 3 minutes per side. All we want to do is get a nice color and texture on the outside, but we want these to be rare when we remove them from the pan because when we braise them later, they can release all their juices from the inside to help further flavor our sauce. Once we're done searing our steaks, we don't want to clean our pan. There's so many good little bits stuck on that pan that we can deglaze later, but we do want to get rid of as much of the grease as possible. We won't need that, but we want to add in a little bit more extra virgin olive oil and a little nub of butter. Add in your aromatics, your garlic and your shallots, and swish that around for about 20-30 seconds. Then add in your onions and your mushrooms. Normally, if I'm caramelizing mushrooms or onions, I would want to season them at the end, but we're going to salt these early because we want them to release their water quickly, because we're going to be reducing them in the sauce for a while anyway. So this was after about 8 to 10 minutes. Just take your time until they're reduced down. Add in 2.5 tablespoons of all-purpose flour and cook the flour for a couple minutes just to get that raw taste out of it before we deglaze. Just like that. And then we want to add in that beautiful fortified stock that we made, as well as a 1.5 cups of our Guinness stout. Bring this up to a high simmer, and it's gonna get really frothy at first, and don't panic. It's just all the sugars and the carbonation from the beer. Everything is kind of just going to the surface, but that will reduce and just evaporate over time. At this point, all you need is patience. I know your house smells amazing, you're ready to dive in, but give this a good 12-15 minutes to really reduce by half and lock in all those flavors and become more compact. Once you've made it to halfway reduced, check for seasonings. It tasted absolutely incredible, but we're gonna add a little salt and pepper. Add in your parsley and swirl that around. And then we want to add back in our Salisbury steaks. And we only reduced by half because it's going to reduce for another 10 minutes while we simmer and baste our steaks. So give each steak a nice basting of the gravy and the mushrooms and onions. Put a lid on it, and about 5 minutes, take the lid off, give it another basting, and then we'll put the lid back on and let it simmer another 5 minutes. And now, finally, we're done. Grab the sides of your choice and get ready to taste an incredible Salisbury steak. The key to this dish is the fortified beef stock. Everyone makes a savory Salisbury steak, usually with umami flavors like Worcestershire or maybe some soy and some ketchup. But our beef stock had an acidic and sweet component with the tomato paste and the ketchup that just helps balance the entire dish and make this otherworldly good. You'll have to try it for yourself to see what I'm talking about. I hope you enjoy.